Hi, this is Elisa, and I'm going to show you how I record my weekly podcast for my class using Audacity. So you can see on the screen here that I have Audacity pulled up. It's a pretty simple program, but it can do so much more than what I use it for. I just want to basically show you my process. All I have to do is hit the red button to start recording. You can see the sound waves of my voice as I am recording. So I will sit down and basically just talk through my podcast for my students. And these are short. They're between 5 and 12 minutes, I would say. And once I'm finished recording, I stop it with the yellow button, and then I go all the way back to the beginning. I hit play, and I start to listen as it plays. And then what I do is when I find sections, I make sure I stop it. I find sections that I want to eliminate. So I click on this tool here. I'm going to show you three tools. The selection tool. And what that allows me to do is select pieces of what I've recorded, and I can listen to that piece, sound waves, okay, and I can decide, okay, that's what I wanted to delete. And then I could go ahead and just hit the delete button, which is here, or delete on my keyboard, which is just delete. I'm going to use my keyboard, and then that section is gone. So with the selection tool, you're basically choosing all of your ums and ahs and deleting them out just by hitting the delete key or by hitting the cut key, scissor key. Okay? So once I'm done recording my podcast, all I have to do now is add some music to the beginning and to the end. Oh, I forgot. Before I talk about adding the music, one of the things that I do is I start every podcast the same. I have an introduction that introduces to the student what podcast this is, what class it's for, and get them ready to listen to what it is I have to say next. Here's an example of my introduction. Good morning. This is Dr. Cooper, and this is a podcast for the ENH 295 Fan Books and Censorship class. Today's podcast is the Week 6 weekly podcast. This is the last week of... Okay, so you can see, if you heard that, where I basically introduce to my students what class it's for, what week it is, and what the podcast is, so that they can understand what they're going to be listening to. So what I want to do now is add some intro music, and intro music will last all the way through my introduction. So what I do is I go up to File, and I click Import, and then I choose Audio. And I have some copyright-free music that I use. I purchased for very inexpensively, and I use this. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one, Get the Groove On. I'm going to open that up. What it does is it creates a second track down here with the music, which is much shorter than my podcast here. So what I want to do is make this bigger so I can see how much time I have. So I'm going to click the magnifying glass and see how it spreads it out. So now I can see that this is 15 seconds, this is 30 seconds, this is 45 seconds. And my introduction is probably about 10 seconds. I think it is this much is my introduction. So I want the music to start before that introduction and last as long as that introduction. So I probably need about, I'd say, I don't know, we're just going to guess this much. So I'm going to click right here, and then I'm going to go up to Edit, and I'm going to Split. So what I'm doing is splitting this audio track. Now the second key that I want for you to see, or tool, is the time shift tool. I'm going to click that, and now what that allows me to do is to move this out of the way. Okay? I'm also going to move this back a little bit so that my voice will start right when this beat kicks in here. So this will play without me talking, and then the music will start and I will start talking as well. Okay, so let's listen to that. Okay, so the music is so loud that you can't really hear me. So I'm going to turn the music down a little bit. I'm going to go -3. I'm going to turn my voice up. No, let's do +5. And then I have to use my tools to fade this music out so that when I start talking, I'm going to fade. So let's make this a little bit bigger again. All right, so let me move this over right there. All right, so now I want the music to start fading right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this tool, which is the envelope tool. And I'm going to click right where I want the music to start fading. So I want the music to be loud at first, and then I want it to fade down. So I go all the way to the end, and then I just drag it down. So I'm holding my mouse down, and I'm dragging. Okay? So now, when I go back over to the beginning and play,
Good morning. This is Dr. Cooper, and this is a podcast for the ENH 295.
Okay, so now my voice is a little louder. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit more so you can hear me. The music starts to fade all the way through to my introduction, and then the music fades out. Okay, so now I move to the end, and it's a lot of space in between here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the magnifying glass to zoom out again so it makes it small. Now I can go ahead and move this to the end. So I go back to my time shift tool, and I move this to the end. All right, so I know I'm not going to use all of this. I'm just going to go ahead and take my selection tool, and I'm going to click about right here. And instead of splitting it this time, I just want to delete all of this. So I'm going to select all of that. You can see how it's kind of gray, and then all I have to do is hit delete. Okay, so now I need my time shift tool, move that back, and now I need to make it big again so I can see exactly where I need to be. So I make it big and then scroll to the end. Okay, so I probably still have too much left here. Let's make it a little bit more. So I want the music to fade out, just that much left. And I probably only want about, let's go to my selection tool, maybe about this much music. So I'm going to go ahead and gray that out, select and delete. And then get my time shift tool and move it back. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing, but this time I'm going to fade in or fade out. So I'm going to use my envelope. I'm going to choose right where I want to start fading. And then I'm going to go to this end and squeeze down. Okay, so now go back to my selection tool and then play it.
And you'll have until Wednesday. Today is Tuesday. So you'll have until the
end
of
the music starts
tomorrow
playing
to update journal number 5 to make sure that it meets the requirements that I'm giving you feedback on from journals 3 and 4. Okay? So that's it. And I hope you're having a great week. And you had a great 3-day weekend. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, so now we have the music that fades us out, and it's nice to use the end of the song because it does its automatically fade out. So we fade in and then we fade out. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the selection tool and take out this extra space here, and now my podcast is right at 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's perfect. So the next step is to export this out as an MP3. So what I want to do is click File, and then I click Export. And then I need to give it a name, so I use a pretty standard format here. It's ENH class 295, and I use modules, so we use module 1, and then I use week, and this is week 6, and then it's the spring, so I use S13. So you can see I've already saved this one. I'm going to go ahead and use the same thing, or let's do X, so we don't go over it. So I'm going to click Save. And then what happens is I need to make sure that I add the metadata. So for instance, if your podcast gets out onto the web somewhere, you want for people to understand and associate it back to you. So what I do is I don't want to have to type this in every time. So I go ahead and save this thing, and I call it the ENH 295, this thing. And I bring that in, and it has this preset. And all I have to do is change the week each week. So I go from week 5 to week 6. And then what I do is say OK, and it will mix down my channels. So I have 2 channels, or tracks. Track 1, track 2. Okay, so it says your tracks will be mixed down to 2 stereo channels and in the exported file. So it's going to mix it together. So I go ahead and say OK, and now it is exporting my file. Okay, so now that I'm done creating the podcast, I have 2 options. One option is to upload that file that I just saved, the MP3 file, directly into Canvas announcements. And because Canvas has an RSS feed for the announcements, it is technically a podcast. I do an extra step in between just because I like to be able to have control over my podcasts. So I run it through a program called SoundCloud. And this is free, but if you find yourself using it extensively, you're going to have to pay for your own account. So let me go ahead and open up my browser. And This is what SoundCloud looks like. And what I can do is just go ahead and hit the upload button. And then I just find the file that I just created, the podcast I just created. And then it starts uploading. And what I can do is then give it a name and so forth, and add an image, the description, and then allow for downloads to be, students to be able to download it. There's a widget that's going to be available, and also the podcast is enabled. And then once I'm done, I just say save. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this one. All right, now once it's uploaded, you can see this is the one that I just created. I have it named NH295 Week 6 Weekly Podcast. And what I can do is hit the share button and then grab the widget code here. So I'm just going to do a Control-C for copy to save that. And then I'm going to go over into Canvas. I'm going to go into the class. I'm going to go into announcements. And here you can see I already have my weekly announcements going on. Now see this little symbol here? That means that there is an RSS feed for your announcements. So any student can subscribe to that RSS feed and have these announcements delivered. So once a student clicks on this with Canvas, they will see any text that I've typed in and also the podcast that I grabbed from here. Now how did I do that? So you saw me grab the share button and grab the code. So when I post my announcement, let's go in and create a new one. Make an announcement. Instead of typing in the box like I normally would, like this, with this menu bar here, I switch views. And then I'm going to go into HTML mode, and I'm just going to paste Control-V, and that googly gop code is what I grabbed from SoundCloud. And when I switch views, what you see is just this little box. Okay, and that little box is my podcast. Okay, and as soon as I hit save, then it will look like the one I just showed you, this one here. Okay, now what you can also do, instead of using SoundCloud, make it a little bit simpler for you, is just to go ahead into your announcements. I like the look of that, so that's why I use SoundCloud. But you go into your announcements, and this time click on this little record upload media. Choose upload media, and then select your audio file. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that podcast that I just created. Oops. Click open at the bottom. And now it starts uploading my MP3 player. And then Canvas will create its own player for you. It's not as pretty as SoundCloud. And you also don't have control over the file anymore once you upload it to Canvas. It's not in your files. It's just in your announcements. So I like to be in control of my files. So that's another reason why I'm using SoundCloud. So once it's done, you can see below it creates this. This is a media comment, and it's just a little player. Students will see, they can click play and play your podcast. Okay, so that's how I create podcasts for all of my online courses. I do one weekly, and so far the feedback from students is great. They love hearing my voice, and sometimes I make them video, and they like the updates to inform them of what we're working on in each week. So if you need any help, visit CTLE and get some training.